Hi, this is James Bowe with Easy Insight. We'll wait a couple minutes for people to join, and then we will get started with building reports on your Cin7 Core data in Easy Insight. This is going to be a pretty informal webinar, so if you have questions as we go, please feel free to ask. It's going to be kind of like a working session where we'll kind of walk through some basics of how you build your custom reports on your Cin7 data, but we can certainly kind of drive to some extent based on what people are looking to see as well. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So within your Cin7 data in Easy Insight, we'll click on Create and do Create Report to go into the process of building a custom report on our Cin7 data. So here within the report editor, you can click on Choose Field. By default, you'll have the two sections here of recommended fields and all fields. So recommended fields pares it down to this handful of kind of sales and inventory focused fields, while all fields shows the whole massive list of everything we pull in from Cin7. In general, when it comes to sales reporting on your Cin7 data in Easy Insight, you're going to want to use the folder that is called Revenue and COGS Details. This folder is available under recommended fields by default as well. What is Revenue and COGS Details? This is a folder that wraps up a whole ton of logic and combines together your sales, invoices, credits. If you've loaded an additional history as like a CSV from your old inventory system or from another system, it's all going to flow through here into Revenue and COGS Details. So oftentimes we'll see somebody go in and they build a custom report just on their data out of sales invoices, sales order invoice lines, sales lines. In general, that's not going to give you the best results because it may not be pulling together all the data and applying accounts correctly, applying COGS correctly, all those pieces. So in general, you're going to want to use this Revenue and COGS Details as much as possible. It will, however, automatically combine with everything else in your data set. So if we go ahead and choose product category, we click on Choose Field, and then we grab Total Sales out of Revenue and COGS Details, that's going to give us that total sales by category, linking together the products and what's everything in Revenue and COGS Details. There are quite a few different fields for you to work with under Revenue and COGS Details. So you have the amount that was credited back in. You have the discounts, current or historical order. We have another webinar coming up that'll go into this more. But if you've loaded in history by CSV or anything else like that, this field will help differentiate the data that's ongoing in Cin7 versus the historical data. You have your gross profit, you have your COGS. So if we go ahead and add those in, we're able to see our total sales, we're able to see our COGS, and we're able to see our gross profit. By default, there aren't any fields for something like gross margin. So if we wanted to create a custom calculation to do that, we could do custom field, add custom measure, find gross profit, drag it into the calculation, do divided by, find total sales, drag it in, all this gross margin. And now we have that gross margin showing up in the report. One thing you'll notice, if we go back into our calculation here, even though I dragged in gross profit and total sales, the names of the fields in the calculation actually varied a little. The reason for this is there's a kind of, with the history of how a lot of this has been developed, there's an internal field name, in this case, invoice CR line gross profit, invoice CR line total. These field names here are aliases, which when you drag them into the calculation, it automatically changes it into the appropriate internal name. So especially rather than trying to type that name in yourself, it can be much easier to just drag in the name from here and build your calculation up with that. All right. So now as far as dates, when you go ahead and do create filter, you'll see that there are a couple different date fields available to us here. There's invoice date, there's payment date, there's order date, and there's shipment date. So order date, that is going to be when the order was created. Especially worth thinking about this in the context of something like COGS and profit. By default, if you're using order date, the COGS are going to be matched up to the COGS of the orders that were made on that date. It's not going to be the pick date that maps to when the item was actually picked as far as the cost. So just kind of a, can be a little tricky there, but we've certainly run into some confusion on that side. But in general, it's gonna map so that the COGS are going to map back to when that order was made, so that you're able to assess for your orders in April, how much profit did you actually make on those orders. So if we create our filter here, then we can adjust our report to show, okay, only show me the data that was the orders that happened in the last 90 days. All right. Oftentimes, we also see people want to apply a date filter only to a certain field in their report. So if we go ahead and pull out a few of these, so what we could do is go in here to total sales, add a filter. So in this case, we're adding a filter on the field, not on the report as a whole. We'll go ahead and do order date. And we'll say, for example, we'll do something like quarter to date. And we'll relabel the field as quarter date sales. Next, we'll go ahead and do custom field, copy field. We'll open up report custom fields and then search for, and then here we'll do last QTD sales, change the order date to last quarter to current day. So now we have, in a single report, we're visualizing the sales for multiple time periods. So there's, I've seen customers who have, 20 different fields for all different ranges that they're looking to, track per SKU, per brand, whatever it is that they want to do to help identify the different sales trends to feed their decision making. The various other product fields can all be found under products. So as you can see here, you have your brand, category, product name, you have the SKU. If you have any additional attributes, in this case, I don't have those set up on this demo, but it'll actually relabel these fields as aliases. So if product attribute 1 is territory, then you'll see the field name of territory here when you go to select your field. Same thing is true on customers. You have the name, you have the rep, you have the additional attributes. So again, if you have the different fields available, different custom fields set up, they'll show up appropriately. One that we've periodically seen is the difference between customer sales rep and transaction sales rep. So you might have a rep that's assigned to a specific customer. And I think in this case, my data will be the same, but it's important to be aware when you're creating a report on sales rep, is it the rep on the customer in Cin7, or is it the rep on the order in Cin7? So for the customer, it'll be the sales rep under customers. For the order, it'll be the sales rep under sales. A few other very useful fields that are under sales that are worth knowing about. Source channel, that's going to typically be, did the order come in from Amazon? Did it come in from Shopify? Where did it come from that's feeding in? So that's often a useful one to pull into your reports. Customer reference, that's going to be the internal ID of or it's going to be the ID of the order from the e-commerce system. So if it's from Amazon, it's going to be, so this will typically be your Amazon order number, whereas this might be your Shopify order number. So however it's being passed in, that's where that data is going to live. All right. Feel free to chime in with any questions as we go along here. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and create a fresh report. Let's see. If you want to create something like a tree report, we could go ahead and where it says report type is list, we click on list. Then from here, we go in, choose tree. Here, we're going to want to set up a hierarchy of data that's going to be specific to what we're trying to do. So, for example, if we want to look at product category and then product name, and we'll go ahead and grab total sales. We can open up our tree to see the specific products on each level with the total sales there next to them. Other common ones as far as like a cross tab, you might say, again, we'll choose order date or invoice date. Have that look as far as what our sales have done across a time period, broken out by a category, by a brand, by a custom field, whatever it is that you need to use in that data. From a cross tab, you can change the date level. So if you click on the drop down here for order date, you'll see different options. So you could say, I want to look at data by quarter year. And updates accordingly. If we want to create a filter to only see certain categories, we could click on the green drop down for category, do create a filter on the field, choose multi-value. So the filter is going to show up here in the filter section. We can click on the all, pare it down to a handful of categories, and it updates accordingly. All right. We can also create reports that combine additional things like if we start with, let's go ahead and we'll choose product name. We'll choose total sales. And then from under product availability, we'll grab available. How many units of this SKU are currently available across our warehouses? So here we're combining sales data with the data out of the current inventory. Going back to what we talked about on the filtering side, if you're combining sales data and stock data, you're typically not going to want to create like a date filter on your sales at the report level, because that's going to be a little challenging to necessarily get the right inventory numbers. Instead, you'll want to create that filter at the field level. So you say like last 90 total, create the filter. So now it's applying that filter just on the sales here while still showing the stock data without it trying to have that report level filter affect it. So especially as you're trying to build things like, if you're trying to build your own sort of forecasting template that combines sales quantity and inventory data, or just a view of sales and current inventory, that would be what you use. Within the inventory section, which is here under product availability, you have on hand is going to be the number currently on hand. On order is what's currently on order in various purchases. Allocated is what's been committed to existing sales orders. Available factors in that allocated amount. And then stock on hand is the dollar value, is the currency value of that inventory that you currently have on hand. If we take a look at some of the other folders here, and oftentimes where we see the uses of those, under purchases, you have the purchase, you have so that's going to be your base data about the purchase. Purchase order lines is the line items that are on that purchase. Lines received is information about the stock that's been received for those purchase order lines. You have the invoices, the invoice lines, payments, all the different parts of your purchases are available here under those folders. If you're using the manufacturing module, you're going to have all that data here under the folders that start with production order. So within here, you have the production order itself. And then you have the data tied to the runs. So each run, and then for the run, you have the components, the finished products, the operations, all those different pieces that come together. So let's take a step back here and look at how some of this data actually ties together. We do our best to try to automatically connect the different folders in Easy Insight, but sometimes you need to tweak this yourself or just have an understanding of how it's connecting the data. If you click on Configuration and do Customize Joins, then toggle over to Custom Joins, these are all the different ways it's connecting the data between the different tables in Cin7. So as you can see, there's a lot happening beneath the scenes here. If you click on Save and then run the report again, then come back into Customize Joins, you'll see that it highlights the joins that it actually used in green. And in this case, we can click on Remove All Unused, just so we can clearly see what it's doing. So in this case, it linked products with product availability, and it linked invoice CR lines, the internal name for revenue and COGS details, with product. So if something is not doing what you're expecting, it can be useful to help to look at the joins and understand, okay, how exactly is that data being connected? Because depending on what you're doing, you may need to, have some additional tweaks to that join. I mean, certainly more of a power user thing once you get more into the system, but it's worth knowing about as you start to build more and more complex reports. All right. Does anyone have any questions at the moment to kind of help guide what we do as we go through things here? All right. Let's see. Looking at some of the other pieces that come into play here. Your stock transfers and stock adjustments are here under stock transfers, stock adjustments. Another section of data that can be very useful to dig into is your movements. So if we go ahead and let's go with product name. And then if we go to the movements, here under product movements, you have you have your set of underlying inventory movements. So here you have the type, for example. So that's going to be, was it a sale? Was it an advanced purchase? A production run? Was it an assembly? Those are all going to be here. So you could say, okay, I want to look at everything that happened in terms of inventory movements that was an inventory write-off, a restock, whatever it is, that's all going to be there. You have and within the movements, you have the quantity, you have the amount, and you have the date. So if I want to look and see, okay, what were my movements in the last 90 days? There you have the amounts as far as the different types. So this can really be useful as far as more inventory centric reports, being able to pull this data together for whatever you need there. And so that data will automatically join with product. You do have within here as well you have the number, so that's going to be the specific order, the specific production order, the assembly, the purchase, whatever it was that movement tied into. All right. Let's see. The other fields that kind of come into play here. Let's see. Any questions again as we keep going through here? All right. Create a fresh report again. If we look at the other visualizations that are available to us, we can kind of walk through a few other examples. So if we just want to create a simple column chart, we'll go ahead and do something like product category. We can choose total sales again. Kind of gives us the example of how we can build a simple column chart. If you want to apply a limit to your data, so in this case, I want to see like only my top, 3 categories. I can click on configuration, go to limits. Here I can choose to limit things to a certain number of results. I could say top 3 items, and then I could choose, do I want the others to be into an other value? I'll go ahead and turn that on. So now we see the top 3 plus everything else grouped into that other. We can go back and adjust our number, look at the top 5. We can go in and make further formatting changes as well. So if I click on configuration, go to report properties, go to formatting. Here under chart sort, I can have it do, for example, y-axis descending instead of x-axis ascending. What this is going to do is adjust it so that the largest number is shown on the left and it sorts down from there. Let's see, I see we have a question about how would you filter to show purchases by customer? Are you referring to, so if it's just like sales by customer, you would grab just like customer name, put that in there. And here we're seeing, well, in this case, our others by far and away the biggest chunk, but we have the sales grouped up by customer. So if we look at that and say, change the limit to say top 10. Well, our data doesn't have too much difference there, but kind of gives you the idea as far as how you can look at the sales grouped up by customer. All right. Another so I saw a question, does it need to be on a field level or can it apply on a report level? The limit is applied at the report level. So this is being applied across the entire report. Another report type that can be very useful is a trend grid. So here so what this allows you to do is easily do trend analysis across any grouping. So when you first come into a trend grid, you'll have a grouping and you'll have a measure. So in this case, we have customer name and total sales. The next step is to click on Setup Trend Filters. This is going to prompt us to set up some additional filtering. So if we go ahead and do compare to previous interval, or well, actually we'll do create now and previous. We could do, say, month to date, last month to current day. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna come back in and redo that one from the start here, just to, and then I see a question that I'll get to in 1 second after I just walk through this one quickly. So we choose name, we choose total sales. We do set up trend filters. We'll do compare to previous in this case, actually. We'll do absolute. We'll say last full month. So with the trend grid, we're able to see in this case, for each customer, how much was sold to that customer in the last month, how much was sold in the previous month, and how much was sold in the same period of the last year. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to do is jump into, if we have product name, there is a folder, there are actually two folders, forecasting fields and forecasting location fields. So forecasting fields, this is going to be forecasting numbers that run across all locations. So for a given SKU, what is the total demand of that SKU, across all locations? Forecasting location fields is going to break that out per location. So it just kind of depends on how your business operates, as far as if you're going to want to track a lot of stuff per location, like if you have a bunch of different stores you need to track at, or if you really just have like a central, single warehouse location that everything needs to really operate out of, you could just use forecasting fields. Within here, you're going to have a number of different fields. So for example, you have forecast date out of stock. So what this is going to say is the projected out of stock date for that SKU. You also have things like forecast daily demand. So this is saying that the projected daily demand of, there we'll go with, bumper plate material here is 3.81 units per day. This daily demand is based on calculating the sales of the finished product, as well as sales of anything that goes into assembling or manufacturing other products. So if something is used, if that's a component, if that's a material that's used in the sale of something that sells, a certain number of units per day, looking at the bill of materials, it's going to work out how much of that material is demanded in turn as a result of that. Within here, you also have things like days, the days of stock. Days of stock, So you can use this to help try to guide some of your process around, understocked or overstocked products. You'll also see days until projected reorder points, the projected reorder date, things like that as well. These values, if you want to tweak kind of what goes into the forecasting, if you click on, to go back here, go into inventory and click on configure inventory. Here's where it has the different configuration around the forecasting. So it can say, how many, what range of history should go into projections here. So at the moment, I'm just looking at the last 365, but you could say I want to have the weighted average, the average of the last 365 demand, the last 90, the last 30, and something like that. To increase the emphasis on more recent sales. Here we're looking at what the target number of days of stock is that you want to have after receiving a reorder, the minimum days of stock you want to keep in inventory, and then the default lead time if there's no other lead time available. So there's some different options there you can use to kind of guide your forecasting. All right. Some of the other fields that come into play here. If you look, you'll see there's two fields here, shipping charged and shipping cost. Shipping charged is going to be the amount of shipping, what you charge the customer for shipping. Shipping cost by default will be 0. But if you have connected your shipping platform to Easy Insight, so ShipStation, ShipTheory, StarShipIt, or just loaded data in by CSV, you can use this to analyze shipping profit and have that data linked through. As far as you'll see there's about 4 different quantity fields here. Just to explain what these are, quantity sold is the number of units you've sold. Quantity shipped is how many of those have actually shipped out. Quantity returned is how many have been returned. And then net quantity is going to be quantity sold minus quantity returned. So, that's kind of factoring in, that's the quantity factoring in returns. All right. Any other questions around anything here? Let's see. We could also look at something like, and we'll do. We can also do things like apply conditional formatting. So if we say, if days of stock is less than 30, then we are going to apply a background color of red to days of stock. So if you need to get a color here that you want to use, it's like a red, you can click, find the example, copy that. Let's go with that. Let's go with a lighter red. We do that. So basically just applying more like a warning highlight. Oops. And I accidentally added 2 pound symbols. So now it's highlighting those in red. Yes, there will be, we will send out the question was, will we send out the recording afterwards? Yes, we will, since yes, I know we covered a lot of information here. We have about 10 minutes left. Any other questions? I know there's a ton here, so feel free to especially, just let things kind of rattle around your brain too. And if you have questions, please reach out, email us. Happy to help, with anything you may have there. Let's see. Just trying to give example. While people think of any other questions, I'm just going to kind of give other examples of what you can do with custom reports here. If you want to do a map, for example, you could choose either the billing or the shipping state. Choose total sales. Updates accordingly. Same kind of thing if you want to do a point map. We'll go ahead and we'll use postal code. You will choose we could probably choose number of orders in this case, so sales count. And that'll show across everything. Thinking what else we can go over here. And then as you build your reports as well, just grab a few fields here quickly. Grab product name, just kind of putting together like a sample of a quick report. You could say everything we've invoiced in the last 30 days. Probably should have covered this earlier, actually. Just it's important to note, you save your report. Then from here in your Cin7 data source, it'll show up. So you can click back in. If you want to favorite a report, click on the three dots here, do favorite as top report. Then it shows up here under favorites. With the report, you can export it to Excel, CSV, PDF, Google Sheets. You can set it for recurring emails. So if you want to have this report emailed out at 7 a.m. every Monday to 5 different people, you can do that through setup scheduling. If you want to access the report by JSON API, so if it's kind of like part of a broader system you're using, you can actually access the report as an API. So just thinking of things people have done that can be useful there to know about. All right. Any other questions? I think we'll give about another minute here for any questions. And if we don't have anything, we might just wrap it up here, since I think I've kind of thrown plenty of stuff at you. Yeah. So I don't know if we have any out of the box. So the question is, are there any reports to help identify seasonality of a product? The way you can set one up is, for example, I'm going to go ahead and choose a column chart. I'm going to go ahead and do customize and do change to multiple groupings. I'm going to choose order date. We'll go ahead and make this one the month. So I'm going to relabel it as month. And then here in the date level, I'm going to choose month. This will make sense in a second. I'm going to click do order date again. This one, we're going to make change to year. And then I'll go ahead and choose quantity sold. So what you're seeing here is, for example, in January, we sold 120 in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So, especially if you have like a big spike in November for Black Friday or anything like that, this can be a way to kind of help gauge the seasonality of your products. And if you want to look at just a specific product, you can go ahead, create a filter on SKU or name or whatever you need to. Pare it down to the product you want to look at. And it'll update accordingly. So this can be a way to, kind of to look into that seasonality and try to identify what exactly, what those seasonal ebbs and flows are. All right, give another minute here for any other questions. All right, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up with that. But thank you for attending this webinar on Easy Insight and Cin7. As I said, we will send out the recording afterwards. But if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by email. We're here to help and happy to make sure you're able to get the most out of your Cin7 and Easy Insight reporting. Thanks for your time.